Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sport. It's me, Stanley. I'm here to do a new video for you today, talking about 5 football stadiums in England that I wish still existed. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of disclaimer in this one. This video was done in November 2023, so the likes of, if you watch it in a few years' time, probably more, it will be complete now, but it wasn't complete at the time of filming, so I would have probably chucked Goodison Park in here at the time as well, and uh, it doesn't necessarily, another disclaimer means, it doesn't necessarily mean, me saying that I wish these stadiums existed, it doesn't necessarily mean that the stadium that replaced them is bad, or whatever, or don't like the stadium. It's just a bit of fun of a video, and stadiums that I historically think I wish was still here. So yeah, I'm going to start off with Sealing Road. Sealing Road Stadium, some of you might not know, but I'm from Chester myself, and Sealing Road was Chester's stadium from 1906 until 1990. So yeah, a big stadium, 20,000 plus capacity stadium for Chester, which is decent for a team that had never played in the top 2 tiers of English football before. The stadium was was known as the stadium, and then referred to by fans as Sealing Road, and then obviously that's the name. It was much loved by supporters who followed their team there for 84 years, and after its closure, they had to spend an hour journey across Cheshire to Mansfield Town's Moss Road for 2 years before the completion of the Diva Stadium in 1992. A few more bits of information here about Sealing Road. Chester, obviously, like we said, moved to Sealing Road from Whitcourt Lane in 1906 thanks to the help of a local member of Parliament called Alfred Mond. The first game at Sealing Road was on the 15th of December 1906 when Chester beat Bangor City 4-0 in what was then known as the Combination. Chester suffered a major blow in August 1989, though, when they had to leave. When they realised they had to leave Sealing Road, it was announced because the club refused a safety certificate for the away standing areas, which reduced the capacity at the stadium drastically down to 6,000, which isn't really a big enough stadium for a team that was in the third division at the time. So the decision was taken to leave Sealing Road at relatively short notice in March 1990, so when an Edinburgh-based consortium took over the club and announced its intention to redevelop Sealing Road as a supermarket, with a ground share to take place elsewhere until the new stadium was completed. So they made approaches to Manchester City, rivals Wrexham and Tranmere Rovers in a bid to arrange a ground share for the next 2 seasons, but they said no, and a deal was struck with Macclesfield Town to use Moss Road. A few more information: Chester have never played in the top 2 divisions, as I said, but they have had some historical matches against some big opposition. When they reached the semi-finals of the League Cup, the league champions Leeds were beaten 3-0 at Sealing Road in round 4, as well of the competition, with Newcastle losing a replay in the quarterfinals as well. Another season. This also led to Sealing Road being used as a venue for a League Cup semi-final on the 15th of January 1975, when Chester drew 2-2 with Aston Villa in the first leg in front of 19,000 fans. The record attendance at Sealing Road was set when they played Chelsea in a third round replay in January 1952, watched by 20,378. Chelsea won it in extra time. And Chester's record victory was in 1936 when they demolished York City at 12-0. And, most notable, Ian Rush played there as a 17-year-old, made his Football League debut before going on to play for Liverpool, scoring 346 goals and 660 appearances for Liverpool Football Club. So yeah, they've also played some other big teams at Sealing Road, with Middlesbrough, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Sunderland, Sheffield United and Birmingham City in there. And most notably now, it is now a retail park. Fun fact though, that the roof from the old terrace is now used at Port Vale. So not all bad, I suppose. Part of the stadium lives on just down the road in Port Vale, the other side of Stoke. Next on my countdown is the baseball ground, what was home of Derby County Football Club. Yes, it was demolished in 1997, and I know what you're thinking. You're only a youngster yourself, or relatively young. Yes, 27 years of age. So I would have only been a year old when the baseball ground became no more. But I'm interested in this because of the history of that ground and the way it's encapsulated in the history of Derby County Football Club, and the fact that Brian Clough and Peter Taylor had success there, bringing the league title to the club at that stadium all those years ago. So yeah, the stadium, 113 years, the stadium was there, and 108 of them was used as a football stadium before it was demolished by Derby County when they moved to Pride Park Stadium. So yeah, it was used though. It was used, to be fair, after that by the reserve team for a little spell. The last game at the baseball ground were watched by 18,287 people and saw Derby County lose 3-1 to the famous Arsenal Football Club. So yeah, big stadium, historic stadium. They had a few European Cup ties there, most notably against Juventus as well. So it would have been nice to have seen that stadium, but obviously it is no more. Up next is White Hart Lane. Right, I want to get out there. I don't have an issue with the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Lovely piece of architecture. Great big stand at the behind one of the goals. So I have no issues with it. Great architecture, great facilities. White Hart Lane was tired, and it did need an upgrade of sorts for Tottenham, and Tottenham did a bigger capacity stadium. But I can put White Hart Lane in here because of the historicness of the ground, the significance of the ground as well. So it's home to Tottenham Hotspur from 1899 to 2017. The capacity varied over the years. When changed to an all-seater stadium, it had the capacity of 36,000, which wasn't big enough to now a 60,000 seat stadium, and it got demolished at the end of the stadium. The stadium hosted 2,533 competitive games for Spurs in its 118-year history, and it was also used for a few England international matches as well, for the senior side and the under-21s. It once had a capacity of 80,000 with attendances in the early 1950s that reached in the 70s, but obviously seating was introduced. It, like all stadia in England, when it went from standard to seated, it dwindled down. And the last game was played on the 14th of May 2017 as Harry Kane scored the winner in a 2-1 victory over Manchester United. And then obviously they moved to Wembley for a couple of years, and then they're now at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is on the site of the old White Hart Lane, but just that slightly different orientation and design. Number 2, ground I sadly didn't get to visit, but really wanted to. Might go and visit the site one day, even though it's housing and stuff now. But the bowling ground, or Upton Park as we all call it, it's a foot stadium located in the Upton Park area of East London. It was home to West Ham United from 1904 to 2016 and was briefly used by Charlton Athletic in the early 1990s during their years of financial difficulty. And the seating capacity ground at the closure in 2016 was 35,016 people, though they had obviously the Sir Trevor booking stand as well. And the little chicken run was a significant thing, as they called it, the little lower tier one stands at Upton Park, which was remembered fondly by West Ham fans due to its narrowness. But yeah, West Ham took up tenancy of Upton Park, or bowling ground Upton Park, located from local club Bowling Castle in 1904, and after the two clubs amalgamated, West Ham rented Green Street House and grounds in East Ham from Roman Catholic Church from around 1912, and then obviously Green Street House was known locally as Bowling Castle because of its imposing nature and an association with Anne Boleyn. Yes, Anne Boleyn, that Anne Boleyn of Henry VIII, and then who had either stayed at or some believers owned that house. So yes, that's significantly then. Hence the ground became known as the Bowling Ground. However, over the years, the ground was more often referred to as Upton Park because of the area in which it was located. In 2009, club CEO Scott Duxbury announced that West Ham had obtained planning permission to expand the East Stand. This would have brought the stadium's capacity to over 40,000 people. But in 2010, the club was bought by David Gold and David Sullivan, and they announced that West Ham eventually would move into the Olympic Stadium after the 2012 Olympics, and they were selected as the preferred bidder as well, beating out the likes of Leyton Orient and, funny enough, Tottenham Hotspur, who obviously then decided to redevelop. and build a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So yeah, their last game was, funny enough, against Manchester United at Upton Park, 3-2 win for West Ham, a bit like Tottenham a year later. So yeah, it must be something about Manchester United playing in the last games at stadiums and getting beat. So yeah, if any other teams are playing their last game at their stadium, I think they should pick Manchester United if they want to win their last game at a stadium. The ground was sold at 40 million. So yeah, that's a lot of money, and it's been developed into 838 new homes and retail outlets and leisure facilities as well. And they announced that there would be plans for a Bobby Moore statue and a landscape garden named in his honour. So yeah, it was also used in the film Final Score. Number one on the list, the last stadium on my list, is Arsenal Stadium, also known as Highbury Stadium. Yes, home of Arsenal Football Club between September 1913 and May 2006, and was popularly known as Highbury due to the location of the stadium, a bit like Upton Park then. And affectionately known by supporters as the home of football. It was originally built in 1930 on the site of the local college recreational ground and was significantly redeveloped twice, the first reconstruction of which was in 1930s, from which the Art Deco of the East and West stands date, and there was also a second development phase that took place and completed in 1989, which added executive boxes to the clock end. The clock end is significant because the clock from that end is now in the Emirates Stadium. Yes, and in 1993, a new North Bank stand was constructed at the stadium as well. And obviously, with the stadium and tailored report, with the stadiums and the terraces being all-seater stadium, it obviously reduced the capacity drastically of the stadium, and they decided to move to Emirates Stadium in nearby Islington, which is funny because you've got Highbury and then there's like a railway line and a bridge, and then there's the Emirates on the other side. They haven't relocated that far down the road, but yeah, it got redeveloped into a residential development, did Highbury, so you can still visit it. The outside and exterior is still as if it was a stadium, but you go inside and the marble hallways are still there, and it's a block basically of flats. But it's nice that they kept the decor there. That's something that disappointed me about the part that they took down the towers. I think that should have been left as part of their development. But credit to Arsenal and having the the stand kept up like that. Development company that developed. I know there was a sort of a planning listed building thing on there, but still not the point. And the cost of the developments is interesting because when they developed the stand in 1930s, cost them £175,000. So according to the website, it was adjusted. If you adjust it to inflation for nowadays, it'd be 11.8 million. And much like the 90s, it being 22.5 million cost, they said if you adjust it for inflation nowadays, it would have cost them £49.5 million. The original architect of Highbury was Archibald Leach, which is significant because he's done work on the likes of Villa Park and most notably Anfield Stadium. He designed the old main stand for Anfield as well. Arsenal's biggest victory at Highbury came on the 9th of January 1932 with 11-1 victory over Darwin in the FA Cup. Darwin just outside of Blackburn. The two biggest defeats, though, there were 5-0 losses to Huddersfield Town in the old First Division in 1925 and Chelsea in the League Cup on the 11th of November 1998. They played a total of 2,010 games at the Highbury Stadium, winning 1,196, drawing 475, losing 339, with 4,038 goals for, conceding 1,955 goals, with a win percentage of 60%. But with Arsenal's last game at the Emirates Stadium, they always say, the grass used to whisper at Highbury. I don't know whether it does at the Emirates, but it used to whisper to you as a player at Highbury. And I'll stop being daft now. Final game was against Wigan Athletic at Highbury on the 7th of May 2006. They just needed to beat neighbours Spurs result to qualify for the Champions League, and obviously there's the whole Lasagna Gate storyline to that one, which I'm not going to go into. But yeah, Arsenal were 2-1 behind. Spurs lost to West Ham that day, and a hat-trick from Thierry Henry the club's all-time leading scorer, secured them Champions League qualification, and upon scoring his hat-trick goal, he kneeled down and kissed the turf, and his hat-trick goal was the final goal scored at Highbury Stadium. Thierry Henry, club legend, Arsenal legend, and as such, it was fitting that he scored the final goal, and the curtain went down at Highbury Stadium. So that's my 5 stadiums I wish existed. Don't forget to like the video, comment below on your favourite stadiums, subscribe to Let's Talk Sport for more sporting content on the channel, and we'll see you all on Let's Talk Sport very soon.